Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Highlands Talk Live. My name is Brennan Bucher. I'm very excited to be joined by my guest today. He was a great football player and graduated from Fort Payne High School in Alabama, then went and stood out at University of Florida, and was then drafted in the 5th round by the Cincinnati Bengals. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Evan McPherson. Evan, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Great. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's get it. We just mentioned Fort Payne High School. We were walking through the halls. Talk to me about your high school experience playing football and getting through Fort Payne.
Yeah, high school was a great experience for me. Obviously, we just talked about it a little bit. I wasn't able to order coffee from my phone to my classroom like y'all are. But no, high school was a great experience. I had a lot of fun playing football. We had a decent team. There was a couple years where we weren't that good, but still enjoyed it. And I was a big soccer player as well, so soccer was a big part of my high school. And yeah, I mean, high school, it's probably like anybody's high school experience, just kind of like, I don't know, super chill, relaxed, don't do too much. I never had homework, so I just kind of football, focus, soccer, and then just kind of hanging out and doing whatever.
Sounds like a pretty good time, but also you're able to have it with your brothers as well. But Logan, we'll talk about him first. He was your older brother, would punt at Louisiana Tech. What kind of role model and leader was he for you growing up?
Yeah, I mean, he's the reason that we got into football. His 9th grade year, he went out and tried out for the football team just as like a regular position player, and he saw the kicker on the other side of the field and was like, I think I can do that. We grew up playing soccer, so he's like, I can kick a football. And so he went out and tried it, brought it home, told us about it, and he kind of ran with it from then on out, and we all just kind of started kicking for whatever reason. And but yeah, he is the reason that we all started getting into football. So he is, I don't know, the cause of all this.
And then you also had a younger brother. We were just talking about him, Alex. He was your holder your senior year as an 8th grader. Now, he's now the #1 kicker in the country by Coles. Did you feel like you were able to be the same leader that Logan was for you, looking back at Alex?
Yeah, our parents always preached to us is like each brother we kind of make the younger one better versions of ourselves. And so Logan's goal was always to make me better than he was, and I felt like my goal was always to make Alex better than I am. And I felt like that was kind of my duty as an older brother, is just to teach him football stuff, but obviously life stuff, and help him out wherever he needs. And I feel like he's done a great job with his football career. Obviously he's at Auburn now, doing really well. And so he's kind of taken it and ran with it, and hopefully here in a couple years we'll see him in the NFL.
Yeah, and we'll go back to you now, because after high school you would then commit to Mississippi State with Coach Mullen, and then Coach Mullen would go to Florida. Did you follow, Coach Mullen for a specific reason, or did you know it was just a great fit?
Yeah, not a lot of people know that I was committed to Mississippi State, but it was my first love. I was 3 hours from home, and I had a girlfriend at the time that was back home in Fort Payne, and I'd be leaving her for about a year, and the plan was to meet up at Mississippi State, and she was going to go to school there. It was going to be great. And then Dan Mullen gets the job at Florida, and I'm like, what do I do? And he was like, I stayed committed to Mississippi State for a couple months. Then he came and visited after he got settled in Gainesville. And I kind of thought it was a no-brainer. I always wanted to play for a winning team. And I thought Mississippi State was on the right track with that coaching staff, but whenever he switched to Florida, I thought there was a lot more potential to be on a better team down in Gainesville. So I ultimately decided to go there, and I'm grateful I did, because it was a great experience. I love Florida, and it's the reason I feel like I don't like the weather up here as much, because I get to live 3 years down in Florida, and I get absolutely spoiled with the weather, and so that's where I resort down to now. Whenever I get sick of the weather up here, I just go back down to Florida, because it's can never go wrong.
That's not a bad life right there.
Yeah.
When you talk about recruiting and special teams, how did you find it was different? And then if you could go back, what advice would you give yourself that you might give? We got kids here in the high school going through that right now. What advice would you say to that?
Yeah, recruiting is it's a tricky and long process. You're always just looking to get that first offer. And you feel like once you get that first offer, then the floodgates will open and you get all these offers. And I feel like the first one is always the hardest one to get. And fortunately, I think my first one was the University of Miami, which was a big one at the time. And I consider them pretty hard when I was trying to decide where to go to school. It was just too far. But yeah, recruiting was a challenge. It's hard to get your name out there and get in front of all these college coaches. But I was fortunate that I had great parents, still have great parents, but they were traveling me all around the country, getting me in front of all the college coaches, going to camps in the summer. That's kind of what my summers consisted of, was college camps. And we'd go one weekend, we were at the University of Miami, and the next weekend we were at Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State, and we would just travel the country and try to get as much exposure as we could. But I say recruiting for specialists is kind of different, because usually they don't recruit or give offers out to kickers and punters and long snappers, but once every 4 years, because they'll scholarship a guy, and usually they'll play for 4 years, and then they'll kind of reset and find another guy. And so that's kind of tricky on the specialist side, is usually schools don't offer but once every 4 years. And so at first I really wanted to go to Auburn or Alabama, but Auburn offered a guy in the class ahead of me, so I knew that wasn't going to happen. And then Alabama, it's not official an offer, but I had talked to their coach, and they wanted me to come in as a punter, and I didn't really want to do that. I knew I wanted to kick field goals, and so that door kind of shut, because they offered a guy the year above me too. And so, yeah, I mean, like we talked before, I had an offer from UK. You're upset I didn't go there, but
Could have stayed in the Commonwealth.
yeah, it just wasn't the school for me. And Mississippi State was 3 hours, and they had a great coaching staff, and I thought it was perfect. And then just so happened to go to Florida after all that. So Florida was probably, I think, maybe a month or two before I signed, which is crazy, because I wasn't committed there but for like a month. So it was a whirlwind, but well worth it, and it was a tough road for sure.
And there was never any thought to that Army offer?
No, I joke and I said if it was my only offer, I think I would have walked on somewhere. So no offense to the Army, but I think you have to serve at least 2 years if you go to school there. So it just wasn't for me. So
When you eventually went to Florida, I think one big game that stands out in 2020 against Georgia.
Yeah.
That was a big game. They were ranked 9th at the time, but also you and Kyle Trask were Players of the Week in the SEC. Is that one of the most memorable games that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I definitely would say it's one of them. It's probably one that helped me in the draft come May or late April the next year, and because I think I had like a 50 and a 51 that game, and obviously we went on to win. And my best friend was a punter at Georgia, and we had lost the previous 2 years to them and weren't able to go to the SEC championship game. And I was bugging him. I'm like, I just want to go to Atlanta once. I just want to play in the SEC championship game once. So, like, just please let me win one game. And then 2020, obviously, was a crazy year and whatnot. And we were fortunate enough to go on and win that game. And we got to play in the SEC championship game, lost, but it's a great experience. So
to your future set of teammates.
Correct. Well, we played Alabama that year.
Okay.
So that was 2019.
That was 2019.
LSU's, yep.
All right. Well, thank you for correcting me on that. Now, I think one of the coolest things you did in college, and we actually have a video up here, is the Gatorade cap clip. Yeah. Let's go ahead and play this video.
Let's see it. There you go.
Now, what in the world made you want to try that? How long did it take you?
Yep.
And, just walk me through that, because that is insane.
Yeah, so that's basically a product of being just super bored in the off season. And I had obviously my wife now, we went to separate colleges, so she wasn't down there. I have Uber time to do whatever I wanted. And the bottle cap challenge was going around, and at the time I was like, I'm going to try to get a little viral video going. And so I just thought of the idea. I threw like a freshman punter up there to video, and we sat there for probably an hour and a half or so, probably hit like 40 balls and kind of made it happen. But it all started because I wanted to try to make a viral video.
Now, you mentioned about Gracie going to a different school.
Yeah.
We'll jump to that. How was it keeping the relationship going? You know, you're at Florida,
Yeah.
she's at Auburn.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that process, that time.
Yeah, it was good, and we both say that we think long distance was probably the best thing for us in the end game, is because we got to kind of be ourselves in college. And she tried out for like the Florida cheerleading squad, and she said if she makes the team, then she'll come to Florida, but if she doesn't, then she's going to go to Auburn. And she was the last girl cut on the final cut day, which was super heartbreaking for me at the time. But looking back at it now, is like going to different colleges was honestly fantastic, because we took the time that we got to spend with each other, and we didn't take it for granted, and we kind of enjoyed that time more than I feel like we would if we were in college together, because I feel like we'd see each other every day. My golf game exploded in college because obviously she wasn't there, so I had a lot more free time. But at the end of the day, the way it worked is we stayed in contact, we trusted each other, and we kept God in the center of our relationship. That was the main thing, and we would have like devotionals that we would do with each other over FaceTime, and the FaceTime dates, and talk every night and do whatever. But yeah, I mean, I feel like being that far apart, helped us grow in our relationship together, but also like our relationship with the Lord, and helped us really understand like how a relationship is really supposed to work.
Well, that's great. And would you say that, you know, kept going when, you know, we're going to get to Cincinnati here in a second, but
Yeah.
when you would join Crossroads and become big in their community,
Yeah.
did that time, you know, with keeping that, your relationship with God,
Yeah.
keep into, you know, what you're doing now with Crossroads?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I give Gracie a lot of credit for what we're doing now, because she pushes me a lot. And how we got invested in Crossroads is it's part because of her. I met the head of student ministry at Crossroads, and we got connected, and I kind of threw him and Gracie together because she didn't have anything going on, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity for her. And so she worked with them for about a year. But in that year, this guy invited me to join this men's group. And the first time he invited me, I was like, oh, I got something going on. I didn't really have anything going on. I just didn't want to go. Because I've never been a part of a group like that, and so I didn't really know what to expect. And then he invited me again, and Gracie was like, you need to go. And I was like, okay, like I don't really want to, but I will since you said. And so I ended up going, and now going on 3 years, I think, with the same group, and they've built into me, and it's been fantastic ever since, just getting closer with Crossroads, being able to do Super Bowl preaching, the big night. It's been awesome, and if it wasn't for her telling me I need to get invested into this group, I feel like we wouldn't be as invested into the church. And it's been so cool to see the growth, I guess, in our family and our friends and our community here. And we have a lot of friends. I feel like more friends outside of football than inside that we hang out with kind of in the area.
Well, now getting back to football, in May of 2021, you get the call in
Yeah.
the 5th round. The Bengals would take you in the draft. And
Yeah.
what did you know before the draft, your work, up until that moment when you got the phone call?
Yeah, I knew I had a pretty good draft process, they call it. So after you finish your college career and you go on and you train for pro day and everything, and usually you have the combine, but my year, since COVID, they didn't have the combine or any private workouts or visits or anything. So the only workout I had for teams was my pro day. And I performed really well there, and so I figured that there was a good chance I was going to get drafted. I didn't know where. I feel like at the time I thought I was going to go to the Vikings. They like me a lot, but now I kind of realized the teams that don't really talk to you that much are actually the teams that are kind of studying you the most, and they don't want to give other teams a tip-off that they're actually looking for you. So I talked to the Bengals once, and so that was it. And I didn't really think that they would be looking, because I didn't even know, honestly, where Cincinnati was or who the Bengals really were. And then on draft day, I get this 513 number, and I'm like, all right, Cincinnati, Ohio, it pops up, and I'm like, I couldn't tell you where that is on a map. I was like, I knew where all the big cities were, but I was like, Cincinnati, Ohio, what's that? And I pick up the phone, and it's Zach, and they told me that they're going to take me with their next pick, and it was kind of off and running from there. I actually learned where Cincinnati is. It's only 5.5 hours, actually, north of where I'm from. And so I was fortunate enough I was able to drive up a couple weeks after I got drafted and fallen in love with the community, which is crazy. And me and Gracie talked about this yesterday. I was like, why in the world did we buy a house here? I'm like, we didn't really talk about it much at all. It was like, it just kind of happened. But I feel like it was probably one of the best decisions, and the craziest like God moments is like, we didn't really expect to love it as much as we do. And this community is really cool, and it's grown in our hearts for sure.
Now you get to Cincinnati, your first game against Minnesota of all teams. Yeah. You get put in a big spot, the kick. What's going through your mind? This is your first real professional game, and now you got to try to walk it off.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like as rookies, you're just kind of blind and oblivious to all the pressure and everything that comes with the NFL. And I feel like the more you're in it, the more you understand and overthink things. And I feel like my rookie year, you're just kind of going out there, you're like, oh, all right, well, I just got another kick. Here we go. But it was funny. It was like the first ever like game-winning kick attempt I've ever had in my career. And for it to be in my first game ever, I was like, this is kind of nuts. And I'm glad it was like a 33-yarder. Just ease it on in. It wasn't too hard of a kick, but it was a crazy, crazy first game. Great experience, and I feel like it helped propel that whole year and just get the confidence rolling.
Now, one game from that season that sticks out in my mind was that crazy game against Green Bay. Yeah. You and Mason Crosby.
Yeah.
There seemed to be a lid on those uprights. Yeah. What did you learn from that game?
Yeah, that's not everything's going to be perfect. I think that was kind of the first game where I struggled like that and missed a few like field goals in a game and some back-to-back. And I realized at that moment that the stadium here is, and especially going towards the river, the wind is super inconsistent. The flags could be showing one thing, but the wind could be doing something completely different. And so at that was the moment where I figured out that the stadium's not as easy to kick in as you think, and the flags aren't always true. But yeah, it was definitely a humbling experience, but a great one to learn from for sure.
I feel like after that game, a lot of the momentum of that season kind of got rolling. What also got rolling was the nicknames.
Yeah.
There were plenty of them. Did you have a favorite?
Yeah, I got that question a lot. And I think we stuck with Money Mac. I think that one stuck the most. But our long snapper came up with the Shooter McGavin one, and he was trying to kind of propel that one to the top, and he wanted that one to stick. But
Cal and CJ really tried to push for that one.
He did. So, but I mean, Money Mac's fine. Still throw the name in there. So,
and then of course the game that really, really put you out there was that divisional round against Tennessee in Tennessee. Low-scoring game. Some people at Highlands may remember that game because there was a basketball going on, basketball game at that point. So we're going to roll. We've got the kick, and we've also got the call of the win.
Trying to kick the Bengals into the AFC Championship. Harris, the snapper. Huber will hold it. 52-yarder. Sweeps the leg. McPherson. He's got it.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Cincinnati Bengals have made it to their first AFC Championship since 1986.
Dang,
so not only did I get the year wrong, but the low crowd was excited. That was a fun one. You're still a rookie at that point. You've got to walk off a playoff game. What's going through your mind?
A lot of excitement, obviously, in the moment. Just weight lifted off my shoulder for sure. You know, walking into that kick, that's one that you just hope and pray that you make because your life could be changed. Obviously, if you make or miss, it's going to change. And just to come through in that moment for the team, and like you said, the first AFC Championship appearance since '88, it was pretty special just for the community. And one of my favorite things to see is like the compilation like video of reactions from fans. I think that's just so fantastic just to see how much it meant to this community. It was a really cool experience for me, and one that I definitely will never live down, and I'll always remember that one.
Is it true that you gave the prediction before you went out there? You said, looks like we're going to the AFC Championship game?
Yeah, well, the whole story is like it's freezing cold at this game. And so I'm kicking into the net, and I think right before we took the knee, I went and stood in front of the heaters with Brandon Allen. And the actual quote was, "Let's go to the AFC Championship."
Okay.
So I don't know which one, if one sounds cocky or one sounds confident. I was trying to be confident and just kind of in a joking way, like keep the mood relaxed, if you will, and kind of challenge myself at the same time. But yeah, I just look at Brandon. I'm like, all right, bud, let's go to the AFC Championship. And that's just kind of how that story came about. I didn't know Brandon was going to tell Joe. But yeah, it's been a pretty cool story to tell, and people really like it.
Well, Joe made it sound awesome in that post-game presser. And then next week, surprise, surprise, you're put into the same situation in Kansas City to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Did that same confidence carry over into that kick?
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's kind of like my first game. Fortunately, it was a 31-yard field goal. Now, it was pretty windy and freezing cold in Kansas City, as it usually is. But it being a 31-yard field goal and everything that happened in that game up to that point, it was kind of like a perfect ending. And it was awesome to end the way it did. And again, you're a rookie, super raw, don't know much about the NFL or what you're getting into, really, and what the Super Bowl week kind of holds. But that was a special moment for me, for the team, for everybody involved, and for the community.
And that obviously sent the Bengals to their first Super Bowl since '88. And what goes into a Super Bowl week that a lot of people don't know? You obviously see, all the hype and the celebrities and everything at the game. But what are some things that maybe people don't know about that event?
Yeah, it's a whole production. I mean, I think we went out on Monday or Tuesday. Obviously, the game's on Sunday. But yeah, so we flew out to LA. And what's cool is the team will have like charter flights for your family and stuff. So like your family can travel up to Cincinnati, and it's like a massive plane of friends and family that go out and stay in LA for the whole week. And it's just a fun experience. Obviously, you got practice and all this and that, but other than practice and meetings and stuff, it's kind of like you're here, like you're free to do whatever you want with your friends and family, whoever traveled to the game. And so we would, after practice and meetings, we would go on these tours of like the California, like Beverly Hills, and see all these mansions and stuff, and just kind of hang out and act like it's a normal week, even though it's not really. And there's a whole lot of media going on that week, and it's honestly a real relaxing week. Real relaxing week of practice. Like nobody is really like full tempo. It's kind of like have everybody rested and ready to go, but all like we call it like above the neck work. You're always working with your mind and playbook stuff. For the other guys, for me, it's just kicking a ball. But it's a fun experience just to be like in a different area. We got to like practice and work out and stuff at UCLA, and so being in a different facility is really good because you're cooped up in your same facility for 6 months, and so it's good to have a change of scenery. And but yeah, it's a really fun week, a good experience.
Obviously, almost the perfect week.
Yeah.
Just short. But moving forward, then the next year back to the AFC Championship. The last 2 years, not so fortunate in the playoffs. What have you guys learned as a team, would you say, from the last 2 years?
Yeah, that's not as easy as we thought, I guess. The second year when we were in the AFC Championship game, I was confident that we were going to win. And we didn't, obviously, and that was a shot to the heart. But and then my third year, obviously, Joe got hurt, and that was super unfortunate. And we played pretty well after he got hurt, but we just kind of missed it there a few games back. And then last year was obviously a pretty disappointing year. We had a lot of great performance and production, just weren't able to pull it out in the close games. So I think this year, we've had a really good chance each year to kind of get back to where we wanted to be. But I feel like this year could be one of those special years if we can get everything clicking.
Now, in that time, on the personal side, you've become a dad. What has that taught you? What have you learned about yourself, more about the world and things like that since becoming a dad?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I've learned since becoming a dad and what kids teach you is patience is a lot of it. I think patience is big, and slowing everything down and just enjoying the moments because they grow so fast. And so I feel like that's what my daughter, that's what she's taught me, is to enjoy every single day and not take it for granted, because one day she's going to be like y'all in high school, about to graduate, and I'll be 40 something and not playing football anymore and just kind of doing whatever. And so I'm really trying to enjoy this time of life that I'm in right now and not take it for granted, and just kind of do my best into just kind of taking it all in and enjoying it.
Would you say you have different advice, say if you were to speak to a high school, we'll say, would you have different advice now than you would have before you were a dad?
Yeah, I think definitely, because before I was a dad, I'd have moments in my life where, like, I didn't want to play football anymore. And I mean, that was whenever I was in the NFL. I was like, I'd get depressed every now and then, and I was like, football sucks, this too much pressure. I like just kind of wanted to do away with it. And so definitely I feel like I've gained a lot more gratitude and just thankfulness for what the Lord's blessed me with and the abilities that He's blessed me with, and not taking those things for granted, because I feel like before she was here, I would take certain things for granted, and the time that I have left in football is obviously not a lot, maybe 10 years, who knows. And I just felt like I was taking those moments for granted, and I feel like with her here now, it's like you don't get any do-overs with this part of life. So enjoy it, try as hard as you can, and don't take anything for granted. Live day to day and just kind of soak it all up, because you're not going to get any of it back. So I think that's kind of what she's taught me.
And then we'll end it off right here. One final question.
Yeah.
What is next for Evan McPherson, the dad, the person, the football player? What's next?
Just kind of, like I've been saying, like just enjoy the ride. Enjoy what I have left of football. Enjoy what I have left of Cincinnati, because you never know when everything could change. And so I try, really, it's just enjoying life right now, and like I said, enjoying every day, and taking everything in, and just trying to have fun with everything. And I feel like football to this point has been kind of a little bit too serious, and kind of where my main focus is. And so at this moment, I'm just kind of enjoying all the little things in life, and just kind of having fun with football, and just going out there relaxed, and whatever happens, happens.
All right, Evan, thanks. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for coming in and being with me. Folks, that's all the time we have for today. So if you enjoyed it, please come back and watch later. We'll have daily announcements for the Bluebirds coming up here soon. And for those not at Highlands, thank you for tuning in. For Brendan Bucher, for Evan McPherson, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, sir.
And have a great rest of your day.